All right. Good morning, everybody. Can't get the webcam to work today. Probably should have just rebooted the laptop before I started, but that's all right. I am not. What did they say? He thought he was the main character. I'm not the main character. Milton is what's more important than you seeing me. So I'm gonna get started per se in just about a minute, maybe 90 seconds. Want to have time for people to join in. Let's look over here at the YouTube chat real quick. 187 people tuned in at the moment. So we'll give people a little bit more time. So it sounds like um, you are hearing me. So that is good. And we'll get started here in just a minute. Let's look at our Discord and see what people are posting there. There's CJ. There's my link. Our Discord, by the way, is part of our Patreon. And you can join our Patreon. Just go over here and put in hurricane track. You don't even have to type, but the first four letters, and you can join our Patreon right there. I'll talk about that more as we wrap things up. It's an important mechanism to fund our work and to bring us together as a community. Everything we've done is pretty much because of Patreon. But yeah, our Discord, all kinds of folks on here discussing Milton. But yeah, we'll go back to the title card, and at least I can move the non-functioning webcam over there. Let's just click on video again. No, see, it's just not going to do it. That's all right. Let's get the telestrator. That could be important to use. There it is. Maybe. All right. See what happens when I click on the webcam for the telestrator. Yes, even that. It's definitely something goofy. I'll let it go, as the expression goes. It's trying to hide that. Let's get these marking tools the way I want them. And we're going to use red today because it's important. All right, so let's officially kick this off. And you know what? Let me go grab my water. I just got up about an hour ago, still kind of rusty. Okie doke. All right, got the water. So thanks for joining in this live discussion. Again, the webcam's not working today, so you can't see me, but that's not what's important. Need to talk about Major Hurricane Milton. It's landfall day. Lives are going to change. Yeah, everybody's going to remember this. And the irony is, Milton replaced Michael, which made landfall. This will make landfall presumably after midnight, so it's going to be October 10th. So it's going to only miss it by about 12 hours of being exactly 6 years to the day that Michael made landfall in Mexico Beach as a Category 5. Now, luckily, Milton will not make landfall as a Category 5. That just it's not going to happen, but that doesn't matter. It is still going to be devastating. So we're going to start off with some posts here. This one's from my friend Dylan, meteorologist over in Dallas. And he's right. Milton is going to deliver a historic hurricane strike to Florida tonight. Catastrophic storm surge will occur on the coast and extensive wind damage happening far from the center. And this does have the potential to be one of the worst natural disasters in American history. And we need to be ready for that. We need to be ready for what we see tomorrow and the bad news that's going to come out of some of these communities. And I'll address that as we go forward. And then the National Hurricane Center Storm Surge Unit, really emphasizing that surge. And we can look at that and see that it has changed. There is some good news here in the fact that we have lowered the storm surge expectations for Tampa Bay. Still 8 to 12 feet is nothing to celebrate, but it certainly is better than 10 to 15 feet. And that area, the purple, has now been basically relegated to Anna Maria Island down to Boca Grande, and then even Charlotte Harbor, though, 8 to 12 feet. And remember, this is above ground level. I'm going to show you some other graphics in just a little bit that'll help visualize this even better. But this is your peak storm surge forecast. And this is basically if it comes in at high tide, this is your worst case scenario. All right. So we'll look at some other graphics related to this in just a few minutes. And then Eric Webb, Milton, this is, we'll take all the good news we can get. Milton is starting to weaken this morning, and a pair of microwave passes by different satellites here, that's what that means, show concentric banding wrapping around the still tightly wound inner core, indicative of an eye wall replacement cycle. And this is what's important about this, which may broaden out the inner core and increase the aerial coverage of destructive winds and surge. And despite Milton weakening some this morning, it really won't change the most deadly water-related impacts a whole lot at all, mainly the storm surge and the heavy rain. So structurally, Milton is undergoing changes as it interacts with the weather feature that has turned it to the northeast, but that's going to make it spread out. That energy is going to disperse over a larger area. So it is important, don't focus on the category and the wind speed. Think of this as a gigantic water-producing weather phenomenon that's coming your way and is going to have a lot of problems with it, one of which will be tornadoes. And we'll look at that. I know I pulled it up here somewhere. I thought I had the SPC. Yeah, there it is. One of which will be the tornadoes. Try again. We do have a tornado watch now in effect for the entire southern part of the peninsula of Florida. And I can click on this graphic right here, and you can see that in more detail. The tornadoes are going to be in these little cells, these supercells that are rotating around the outer part of Milton. And by the way, there is the core of Milton out there. And we'll look at this on a different radar perspective in just a moment. So tornadoes are going to be a problem, and there's no warning to speak of. They're going to happen quickly, and you need to be ready to get to cover. And, hopefully nobody's at the coast, but these tornado threats are going to be inland as well, across the whole southern part here that you see in the tornado watch. All right, moving on along. Tomer Berg, and this is critical for who could experience the worst of Milton. Hurricane Milton over the last few hours has been consistently both south of most models and forecasts, and with a motion vector slightly to the right of most forecasts. This is incredibly important information right here. So it is, the overall path has been south of the models and the forecast, but the motion vector, like it's heading slightly to the right of the forecast. And you can see that in these, basically infographics that Tomer has put together. It's hard to see because we need some like a daytime shot where you can really see the eye, but there's the plots right there. He's filled in with these black dots right here. I'll highlight them in red. These are where the center positions are, and it's clearly to the right of the guidance. And this is to be expected. I want you to understand that. There is an error in the forecast built in. Like every year it changes, it gets a little bit better each year, but there's always some kind of an error. That is what the cone of uncertainty, the forecast cone, is all about. And we can see that here. You have the forecast cone outlined right there, and Milton is currently tracking to the right of the track, but still within the cone, in the very short term. Now, if we saw it way over here, that would be a problem, clearly. We'd have a pretty big error there, but this is not unexpected, and there's nothing wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it is part of forecasting. There's always uncertainty, but it is important to note that the vector, meaning which way it's heading, And the overall, just the reality is it's to the right of most of the forecast and the modeling, which is great news for Tampa Bay. This definitely lessens the impacts to Tampa Bay. And you can, put me on record as saying that. This would definitely lessen the impacts for Tampa Bay. Doesn't mean they're going to be zero, but this will certainly lessen those impacts. But that means a much higher threat of a catastrophic storm surge for areas from roughly Sarasota. We'll use this blue color in here, roughly Sarasota south to possibly Naples. And I can show you that when we get to the National Hurricane Center suite of graphics in just a few minutes. But Milton definitely degraded somewhat on satellite. It's starting to feel some of these baroclinic processes in the atmosphere, much drier now on the west side, but it is moving. It's moving quickly now at 16 miles per hour, and it's going to degrade and spread the energy out. And then we're going to have this huge surge over an area of Florida that has a lot of people, a lot of real estate, a lot of beautiful beaches, and then all of that's going to spread inland. So here is the radar I wanted to show you. And this is from an FSU site that I use from Dr. Mark Nissenbaum. And these are the cells down here. In fact, let me scroll down and we'll pause it on the last frame when we get there. Boop, there we are. So these are the cells right here that we have to really watch. They're kind of curled up, these little supercells embedded within the circulation, and they're going to change and they're going to be rapid, the onset, the whole bit, and that's going to spread inland as the circulation comes through. So you need to be ready for that. That's what the tornado watch is in effect for. All right, so put it into play again. You can see those rotating around. The reason we get these is the atmosphere is already spinning, and that's the motion in the atmosphere that you need, like a pencil rolling on a tabletop. And then you get these thunderstorms that develop. We call that convection, and that helps to tilt that spin in the vertical, and you get these little rotating storms, which we call supercells. And they can drop brief but powerful tornadoes. And they're not going to look like necessarily the ones you see in the Great Plains. So you need to be ready for this. You need to have your NOAA weather radio or your phone set to the EAS stuff so that it can come through. All right. So tornado is a big problem as we go through the coming hours. The map is exceptionally busy for October the 9th. Watching a system here. Leslie's a hurricane again. This could develop into Nadine. And then we have historic Hurricane Milton, and then probably more coming later on in the month in this area as a favorable MJO comes. We will deal with that next week. So here's what I want to show you. This is the good stuff here that can really help you to be ready for this just catastrophic event that is coming. First of all, I've been harping on it. Let's look at the public advisory. The 8 a.m. intermediate update, still 915 pressure, and the wind was 155. Undoubtedly, all of these stats right here, these numbers are going to be changing. The wind speeds are going to come down. The pressure is going to rise. We call that filling. And that's just part of the mechanics. It matters, but it doesn't matter, because what I want to show you all the way down here is the discussion and outlook. And I think that I can increase the point size there. So the discussion and outlook, really important here. This is your info that tells you like a little synopsis. This is the wind speed information, and then the hurricane force and tropical storm force wind field. Still looking at 30 miles for hurricane force winds. This will expand. This is going to expand. That 30 miles is where you're going to really get those big storm surge values. So 30 miles of coast currently would be in that radius of maximum winds. But the tropical storm force winds extend out 125 miles from the center. And it's not uniform. It's not perfectly in every direction. So throughout the day, when we get the 11 o'clock update, keep an eye on this number and keep an eye on this number, but especially the hurricane force winds. And when we're out live later, setting up the equipment and we're from the vehicle cam, I'll keep mentioning that. I'll have Matt make sure he reminds me as if he doesn't have enough to keep up with, my colleague. And the Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter data, so that's real. They dropped, I say it's real, it means there's somebody there. It's not just an estimate. But the drop sonde measured 915 millibars. All right, so let's jump back up to the graphics because these are very, very important. And let's see, why does it say update here? 9 a.m., there we go. So we have a 9 a.m. update. They're going to do these every hour now. All right. So the pressure is up a few millibars to 918, but the wind still 155. So yeah, they're going to do position updates every hour until landfall. So just keep that in mind. So the main graphic I want to show you here, we got to talk about the surge. Again, I showed it earlier from the social media post. 8 to 12 Tampa Bay, 10 to 15 south of there towards Boca Grande, 8 to 12 feet in Charlotte Harbor, 5 to 8 in parts of Collier County, and then lesser amounts as you go south. And then on the East Coast, from South Santee River all the way down to Palm Beach, Martin County line, storm surge will be a problem because of the onshore flow across this area through here. You know, that onshore flow, because the hurricane is going to cut across something like this, and that's going to create onshore flow over here, offshore flow over here. And that brings me to a question that I got in an email. I saw it just before I went live here, and I wanted to address it. This is from Anita in Miami, one of our supporters on Patreon, many years now. Anita asked a similar question related to what I just showed you about the feeder bands and the wind direction and whatnot. Anita lives in Miami, and when Milton crosses over Florida, which direction will the winds be? Northwest or different? Well, they're certainly going to change. And if we look at the interactive tracking map here, I can show you this real quick. As Milton cuts across, the worst of the winds are going to be onshore down here. And then all across Florida, you're going to have, south of the track, the wind speeds are going to, the wind direction is going to come this way. And then to the north of the track, your winds are going to come this way as that moves through. That's just the rotation of the hurricane. But as it exits, then eventually down in Miami, the winds will switch out and be from the northwest, as they will everywhere as the system goes by. So, Anita, you can also think about the radar that I showed you and how those bands are going to rotate on this way. So you're going to have southeasterly winds, and the bands are going to come through from the southeast. And then after Milton goes by, it'll probably clear up really quickly, honestly, and you'll get a southwest wind at some point. But closer to the track, you'll have a northwest wind. It all depends on where you are in relation to the center. We'll back this out because we're going to come back to this in just a moment. So that storm surge, that's the problem. That's the one that's going to create catastrophic damage down here. And that is why we've got our camera systems out there. Now, this is what I want to show you because this is different. This is a general guideline for understanding where storm surge could occur given the current forecast situation. And this is from the 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Like, when are they going to switch this over to Eastern Time? Hopefully at 11. Surely Milton is in the longitude of the Eastern Time Zone by now. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, so this gives us an idea. And you have to click to accept the terms and conditions, right? So this is based off of slosh model data, very advanced modern hurricane storm surge forecasting tools. And we can zoom in here and see what we see for Florida. First, let's look at the Tampa Bay area. This is obviously very important. Most of the biggest surge values appear that they're going to happen over here on the eastern side of Tampa Bay. I don't understand why that is mechanically, because the wind is presumably going to be coming from this direction as Milton makes landfall. Assuming it makes landfall down here, your wind to the north would be from a northeasterly direction. So unless it's because when it goes by, you do get maybe some kind of a southwesterly push. I don't know. I'm not going to question it, but it is confusing to me. And being honest about that, I think is important. I can't explain this. Maybe it's the way the bay sloshes around. I don't know. But we are all very, very fortunate. I know it's been aggravating to evacuate this area. You go through it seemingly every year now for the last several years. We are very fortunate that the track of Milton with the core, that it's not going to be something like this, because that would obviously, probably be close to $1 trillion disaster and hundreds of lives lost because we can't get everybody out of Tampa. So, we just deal with the cards we are dealt, right? So anyway, those are the storm surge values for the east side based on the 5 a.m. Eastern time full advisory package. I can't explain it. And like I said, I'm just being honest about it because the worst of the conditions will be to the right of where the center makes landfall, which currently is forecast to be generally somewhere in this vicinity right here. And as such, the storm surge values farther to the south do make complete sense to me. And if we look at the inundation layer only, 9 feet or more is all the red area. And when you do that, obviously it changes because the other stuff shows the marshes with the intertidal layer. But this is like your raw inundation layer only. Lots of red, which is greater than 9 feet. The orange is greater than 6 feet. And very, very concerning for areas like Sarasota, Siesta Key, clearly a really, really nightmarish situation. So this is Siesta Key right in here, just to give you an idea. The way the graphics and the place names show up, it's kind of hard to see. And as you move south, you get towards Venice. It's all red and orange, so 6 to 9 feet easily above ground level. And then moving down the coast, closer and closer to Charlotte Harbor, and then the entirety of Charlotte Harbor, Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, all underwater, all the way up. What is that? The Peace River? I mean, just awful, awful stuff. Everybody needs to go. You need to GTFO. All right. Get the bleep out. You got to go. And then, unfortunately, down here where Ian caused significant jaw-dropping damage, terrible. This is going to catch the water very efficiently once again. And any of your concave areas where you have direct onshore flow, that's going to be very, very problematic. Moving on south into the Naples area, and here's Marco Island, but even Naples doesn't escape. And it's interesting to me that now this is a lot of undeveloped area right through here. I know that, but Naples proper up to the north, they don't look too bad. And it's the shape of the coastline and the angle of the approach and so forth. So I'm not too concerned with Naples unless this shifts significantly more south. Now, closer to North Naples, yeah, you could get some bigger values. In your worst surge, the resolution isn't good enough. You can't just zoom down to beach level, but there's going to be some storm surge in Naples. And is it going to end up being like what we saw in Ian? That's going to all depend on the final track. So if we zoom back out, you really get the idea. Terrible storm surge here from Fort Myers, even up the Caloosahatchee. Very problematic. We had cameras there for Ian, but boy, Charlotte Harbor, that stands out to me as being just a potential nightmare disaster for these folks. And then along the barrier islands and just inland from there, all the way up perhaps to Sarasota. All right. I want to jump over to the interactive map because I want to point out some things. This is related to what Tomer Berg was talking about in his post. This is the current position. I guess this is the 8 a.m. intermediate advisory information, not the update. The update's just like so these are your advisory packages. Maybe if I refresh it, maybe it does do the 9 o'clock. Yes, it does. Of course it does. I just needed to refresh. So we can see that the center, and the hurricane's not a little swirly icon like that. You guys know that. But the center is to the right of the 5 a.m. forecast track. This is where it is now. That's where it was forecast to be. So it's already off track and it's been that way for quite some time. So this comes on up. And if we just deduce from this that it's going to stay to the right of the track all the way up, it would presumably make landfall somewhere in here. Let's get some water. Do too much talking in a dry, cold hotel room. And you know why? Because the power goes out. I have to have a comfortable room for later, hopefully, to sleep. Anyway, it could make landfall up there just south of the four, but it could wobble back north of the track. So you can't really, it doesn't work that way necessarily. And then your forecast cone, doesn't tell you a squat about impacts. That's just where the center should be and usually is a majority of the time. All that is about the reliability of the forecasting of the center. The cone tells you nothing about impacts. But as we zoom in here, I'm going to turn on our camera layer off our interactive map. This is what we have on the Hurricane Track Insider site. And we have 3 areas set up now with 5 total cameras. And as you can see, the official forecast track would put all 3 of the current camera locations in the right front quadrant. And this is what the one looks like at the Bayfront in Sarasota. And these will be able to be viewed even at night. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is the 2 camera systems, the camera systems that we have at Siesta Key. Through the absolute tremendous cooperation with the homeowner down there. That is a condo or a house right there, a separate house from the one that we have the camera on. So we are literally working with the owner. And then this right here is truly remarkable. We put one inside the under part of the house, and we actually have a marker right there. It's hard to see, but we can see it. And it's a 5. And that is 5 feet above the floor level. And we will be able to see under here at night as well. So even if this is at night, of course it will be, we will still be able to see these views as long as the network from Verizon stays up. It's man-made. Who knows? We might lose everything. Be ready. Like, I don't know. And then we've got this one down here on another house. Absolutely terrific cooperation with the owner and some of our colleagues and partners on Patreon. 2 different camera shots that we have set up so that we can monitor conditions in these areas. I think Venice here, this could be absolutely just a blistering storm surge. I'm really concerned about that. So our plan today is, I think we need to just not put anything in Tampa. I'm not convinced of it. And we need our efforts down in the area where we know we're going to get a catastrophic storm surge. That is not to say there won't be any impacts in Tampa Bay, but I just don't see how that's going to manifest itself. I mean, I suppose as the hurricane comes in, it could shove some water up in there, but the totals have come down. I don't want to ignore Tampa Bay, but this is part of our plan. We got to go with where the most impacts are going to be, and we're going to focus that. We've already got these systems here that I just showed you, and I'll use orange to sort of make everything match. We will continue to place units all the way through these areas here, and even out into the Boca Grande area, and then up into Fort Myers, and maybe into Collier County. We still have many, many more systems to go, plus the weather stations. I know one of the weather stations I probably want to put on one of these bridges over here, and we'll figure out the rest. So that's the game plan going forward. All right, let me jump on our Discord again, see what people are talking about. All kinds of good stuff here. Oh yeah, we do have a calendar that we put out. Let's see, some of us are not seeing the telestration. Oh, yeah, I don't know why it's not picking up the telestrator. Sorry about that. That's kind of weird. And I'm just now seeing it. Not really sure how I can fix that at this point. I thought that I had the Zoom. Let me check over in the YouTube chat and just ask. I'll turn the telestrator off. And are you seeing the telestrator? I probably should have checked earlier, but that's okay. At least you hear me, and hopefully I described it um, adequately. No. Well, sorry. That's a bummer. I don't know why. Let me stop the screen share and let's just try again. Let me turn the telestrator back on because we can go over those things real quick that I was showing you. So the telestrator's back up. Let's go back to Zoom. I'm gonna tell it to share everything here. Come on. I want to minimize that, drag this over here, and share. Screen application windows. I want to share the whole thing. All right. So let's go back to this. We'll put the telestrator on. How about now? You guys seeing that? I just drew a big circle around the chat. We'll give it a second to buffer through. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It does on my workstation back home. But we got to move on. Can see it now. Yes. And then somebody says no. Yes and no. All right. So let me go back really fast to the interactive map over here and answer Anita's question from Miami. So as the path goes through, Anita was asking about the wind direction. Initially, you're going to get the flow coming in like this, southeasterly winds around the circulation. And then as Milton goes by, those winds, it's going to track out this way, will eventually come out of the southwest as it goes by. And then it'll be far away. Yes, eventually you will get northwest winds as Milton tracks far out into the Atlantic. That's one of the things I was trying to show you. The other part is the storm surge down here in the west coast of Florida. Obviously, the worst part is going to be along and to the right of the track up in Tampa Bay. You're going to have offshore flow. That's why I don't understand the higher surge values from the slosh model in Tampa Bay. And like I said, I'm just being honest about it. And then we've got our camera systems down here. And the last thing I was wanting to show you is where we intend to put the rest of the camera systems going forward. But pretty much down the coast into the Charlotte Harbor area. Got a few spots that we know we're going to put them, including Fort Myers, and then maybe down into Collier County. And we do intend to put some stuff out here, perhaps. We shall see. But that's why I got to wrap this up and get going. It's only been 37 minutes. Feel like I've been talking longer. All right. Well, I'm glad the telestrator at least worked at some point. Sorry it wasn't earlier. My bad. So again, we would love to have you join us literally. You can do so through Patreon. You go in, you type hurricane track. You don't even have to type it all in. You get there and you can sign up. And when you sign up, you then have your email address that you signed up with, and you go to hurricanetrack.com, which is somewhere over here. Let me get my own web. There it is. Duh. You put your email address right there where it says username, and then you go to the Hurricane Track Insider site. That's how it's all connected. Patreon, Hurricane Track, go to the Insider site. There's all your tabs that you're going to want. There's the interactive tracking map, which has all kinds of cool features. You can draw little radius of maximum wind deals like that. And you can draw distance calculations. How far is it from, my area to the center, whatever. All kinds of really good stuff there. You can change the map extent, the background, turn off the layers. There's all kinds of stuff that Mr. Woodgate has baked in to this incredible interactive map. And you can zoom right down to street level and get an idea of where the center is supposed to go in and who would get the biggest surge based on that, based on what I've been teaching you. And of course, you can click on our cameras and see how they pop up as we put those out. And we do have permanent cameras, by the way, that people host for us across the area These are independent, and then when their power goes out, these cameras are going to go out. Our cameras are all self-contained, and we've been doing that for 20 years, of course, pioneered it, and others have emulated, which is fine, good. The more, the better. I can't cover every inch of ground, so it's good to see other people doing it. But we've got some really unique stuff that we've done with ours. So again, you sign up through Patreon, go to Hurricane Track, you log in, you get the dashboard there, the menu, and then you've got the cameras over here and a nice little dashboard if you want them. And I'd like to point out too, because I am proud of this, we do have a podcast that's exclusive for our Patreon community. It's like one of the big things that I can give back. And the podcast is literally a chronology of my career. All the details that you'll never see in a documentary, because like Joe Rogan or somebody, these podcast episodes can be 2 hours. And so if you like that kind of thing, we do have a podcast. It's called Stories from the Hurricane Highway. And we have our documentaries, of course, that are playlisted and everything, all kinds of originals from the Hurricane Highway to the old, venerable Tracking the Hurricanes. Remember that? Yeah, we did that in 04, 05, 08. And then I did one in 16 and 17 and 18. All this work supported by you guys. And I really, really appreciate it. The whole team does. We are where we are because of you. And you can do it all through Patreon. And look, it's not just hurricane season. We do winter storms, educational things, live Zoom meetings. We all get together and talk over here on the Discord. Truly a remarkable thing that social media has allowed us. And we'd love to have sustaining members, people that can help make this project even better. Everything we put out is funded by our crowdfunding community. We have people that engineer equipment, people that code for us. It is truly I think it's the most remarkable thing I could have ever hoped for when I started my career way back in 1996. All right, let's look over here at the YouTube chat just to see what's up and see anybody have any questions for me. I can take just a few minutes and see what you got. All right. So thankful for all of your work, Mark. This is truly life-changing. It will be, absolutely. And so right here, put something on Bayshore. So I was thinking about that, but it doesn't look like from the surge inundation data that there's going to be much surge if you're talking about Bayshore and Tampa. I mean, there will be possibly a little bit. And you know what? I mean, it is pretty easy for us to do. And I'm not trying to be lazy. It's just the time constraint. And, we did have something on Bayshore for Helene, so it probably makes sense to do something here for this one, for Milton, and kind of compare the two. So I'm glad I looked at the YouTube chat. That's probably a really good idea that you said there. And I'm assuming you're talking about Bayshore in Tampa because there is a Bayshore down in Charlotte Harbor as well. All right. Let's see what else. Vehicle camera today. Yes. The vehicle camera will be up. Some of these go quickly. I gotta how do you slow the chat down so I can read them? Let me read a couple things, and I'm going to tell you a couple things to look for from us. From Bergman, I guess. Mark, do you think they're keeping the numbers for Tampa Bay where they are, basically so people don't try to return home? No, I wouldn't think that it's specifically because of that. It's because of the uncertainty inherent in the forecast. You don't want to just go on, well, we're absolutely sure this is what's going to happen. There is uncertainty, and enough so that Tampa Bay could still get those high numbers. Can we get a comment on the dry air? Yeah, the dry air is fully expected. That's part of the baroclinic process of this interacting with the trough, and that'll help to sap the inner core, bring the winds down, but it's too late. This thing is closing in, and we're still going to get a catastrophic event. Dry air completely expected. Confused Goose, how many more cameras do you think you'll set up? I think we got at least 10 more, something like that, plus several that just record only, including a couple of very high-level, brand-new secret camera systems that we're testing. And, I don't mean to sound like whatever about it, but we got to make sure they work before we make them public. and this is a good opportunity to do so. How warm is the Atlantic off of Florida? Can Milton strengthen after crossing the peninsula? The Atlantic still in the 80s, basically off the coast of Florida, and the waters are warmer than average. Milton will be undergoing baroclinic and extratropical transition, which is just a fancy way of saying it's going to get involved with more upper level energy. And so it's going to transition from being purely tropical and compact to spreading out in the energy over a larger area. So it would not re-strengthen because it's going to get involved with the upper level westerly winds. And just a couple more. Miami getting any rainfall? I would assume so, yes, from those bands as they come through. Hard to know for sure. Let me give you a real quick hint. If you go to weather.gov, weather.gov, I'll just do it right. We'll do it here. Let's go to weather.gov, put in your zip code or just click on the map. Look at all that red. Good grief. Wow. I guess even my area. I'm glad I did this. Back home, Wilmington, North Carolina. We are under a tropical storm watch warning in the offshore waters, and we have some flood advisories. Anyway, put in Miami right up here, Miami, Florida. You click on it, and you really get an idea of your rain chances plus local radar. Currently 84 today and tonight. Tropical storm conditions possible in Miami. And you get all the information here about the probability of precip. But here's a real good tip for you. You can read the hurricane local statement out of Miami, and you get all kinds of good stuff here that you got to read it. You got to do it yourself. I can't do it for you. But there's the rainfall, and it is possible for these different counties 1 to 3 inches of additional rain for that area. All right. Before I let you go, let me tell you a couple of important things, and I got to get ready to hit the road. First, after I stop this live session, I will get ready and jump in the car, and we will have the live feed from the vehicle going starting around noon, maybe earlier. So be ready for that. And you can travel along with us. That's on YouTube. We do put what we do on YouTube public. We're not trying to hide everything behind a paywall. We kind of have to, or it wouldn't work. It would break. There'd be so many people watching, it would break. So that's part of the reason why we have the Patreon. And I've already explained all that. We have to be able to fund this. Anyway, yes, we do have a public feed, and our back-end team will help to manage that, and you can follow along as we do our work. Then, once everything is done and the last camera is out, I'm going to drop Matt off at his place that he's staying near Brandon, and then I'm going to come back over here to Lakeland and set up in the office here again, my hotel room office, and go through Landfall with you guys. There's nothing for me to do out there in the vehicle. It's going to be dark. It's going to be dangerous. And I don't do that. If other people want to, that's fine. I want to see how these cameras do. And Lakeland should be pretty good on power. So I will be hosting a live Landfall event where I'll look at all the stuff we're looking at now. We'll look at radar. We'll pull up the cameras from time to time and, get on Zoom, since I'm using Zoom to broadcast this with various people that are in the path. It's going to be like our own little news broadcast. So I invite you to tune in this evening. I don't know what time that'll be. You'll hear me talking about it if you follow along on the live stream from the vehicle. But that's going to be tonight. And then after this makes landfall, maybe an hour or later after that, I'm going to go to bed because I got to get back home to North Carolina tomorrow. Very important family stuff. All positive, everything's good, but I must be home this weekend. It's important. Trust me. All right. And then I'll come back and get everything next week. I mean, what am I going to do? I can't go out there and sit siesta key when this is over to Thursday or Friday. They're not going to let me. And that's stupidity. I'd be getting in the way of people. My stuff will be just fine. I'll get it later. So that's the plan. Really hope you'll follow along. Would love to have you on our Patreon side to support and interact with us. Be a part of our team. Be glad to have you. All right. I am Mark Sudduth. I'm going to sign off for now. I'll see you in less than 2 hours live from the vehicle. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe out there. And I'll see you from the vehicle, and we'll see you again tonight during the live Landfall event.